Hey guys, good evening. It is John C. Morley here, serial entrepreneur. Great to be with you. It is, yes, Tuesday, January 23rd, 2024. Great to be with you. And we're continuing where we left off yesterday. But first, we'll get into the thank you, which is thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate that. And I want to say thank you to you for another reason, ladies and gentlemen, because Inspirations for Your Life has hit over 144,000 downloads. Pretty cool, right? So thank you for being here, whether you're here at 10:40 at night, 10:40 in the morning, 8 a.m., 8 p.m., 12 noon, 12 midnight. Makes no difference. Potato, potato. Thank you so much for being here. Be sure to scan that QR code. And definitely, ladies and gentlemen, please go ahead and follow me on TikTok. And the reason I'm asking for that is because when you follow me on TikTok and we reach over 1,000 followers, we'll be able to stream live to there, as well as some other great content I'll be putting out there, including some live meditations, live cooking, and so many other great things. But I can't do that on TikTok until you actually, basically, till you get me up to that past 1,000 mark. So I am, ladies and gentlemen, I am John C. Morley, serial entrepreneur, and I am a podcast host and a podcast coach. And I'm a specialist in helping businesses tell a story that leads to them growing and being more scalable and, of course, more profitable. Now, I typically do work with companies that bring in 10 million or more. They either know the story, they want to find their story out, but the most important thing is that they want to do it from truth. That is the most important thing. All right, guys, let's get right into the show because we have a lot to talk about. Our master topic for the week is finding our way to becoming a better leader. And we had a great conversation the other day about, the Boy Scouts, how that's one of the great places where, you can actually become a good leader. And we said leaders are not born, they are made. All right. Our master topic for today, everyone. You ready? And that is unlocking leadership excellence, identifying bad leaders, part 2. Series 3 means we're in the third year, show 4, episode number 4. So again, we're not trying to criticize leaders. What we are trying to do is become better. And if a leader doesn't take the nudge to get better, then it might be time to replace that leader. So let's talk about some of the ways, first of all, that affect this. One is that leader just has a lack of focus. They might have great aspirations. They want to do great things in their lives, but they lack focus. And I don't care how nice a person they are. If they lack focus and they don't know what they're doing, then there's no way that they're going to be able to lead themselves, let alone leading others. Okay. So I think that's definitely something that we've got to think about. The next thing I want to talk about is a lot of leaders out there beside, losing focus. But before I talk about focus, what is focus according to, Merriam-Webster? I always like to give you a definition from them. So focus is a noun, a center of activity, attraction, attention, a point of concentration, direction, attention, emphasis, a state or condition permitting clear perception or understanding, and adjustment for distinct vision. It is a point at which rays converge or form which they diverge or appear to diverge into. Like the point where the geometrical lines or the prolongations conform to the rays, diverging from the converging toward other points intersecting, giving rise to image after reflection by a mirror or refraction by a lens or optical system, like what we'd see by using a prism. A point of convergence, one of the fixed points that with the corresponding dialectics defines a conic section, a localized area of disease, or the chief site of a generalized disease or infection, the place of origin of an earthquake or moonquake. And there is also focus as a noun. Like if we say, you want to focus the projector. When I talk about losing focus, I'm talking about the idea of, they're losing their clarity, like they're losing what they're working on. If I say a leader needs to be focused, that's the act of them being focused. So it's both that's important here. The other thing that happens to a lot of leaders is, they get in and then what happens is suddenly they have a challenge. And the challenge that they have is not really anyone else's fault but their own. And if they don't know how to be a good leader, then they need to train before they take the role of being a leader. So maybe, for example, you're running for an elected official position, but you really don't know anything about not only that position, but things like Robert's rules, etc. So you got to really brush up on that stuff before you can actually become a great leader. The other thing that leaders often do wrong is they become too comfortable. How do you become too comfortable? I mean, sitting in a chair? No, by being too comfortable, it means that we just don't try anything that's a little bit harder. We don't push ourselves. Let me give you an example. A lot of people can relate to going to school, right? So, one of the things you can relate to is the fact that if you only do the homework problems that are comfortable for you, then you're never going to grow. You're never going to get better. If you only do things in life that you're comfortable with, then you're never going to learn. You're never going to expand your horizons. And if you can't expand your horizons, how can you ever expect to lead someone? The whole reason that a leader exists is to mentor and help other people, and so that those people can help the leader on their journey to where they want to go. But a great leader knows how to motivate people. I didn't say coerce people. I didn't say manipulate people. I said a good leader knows how to motivate people. Because when a leader motivates people for the right reasons, they just come on board with all forces. All right. 150% or more invested. That's important. So being too comfortable is one issue. Another one is neglecting people and the market. Well, John, we weren't necessarily talking about that. Yeah, we are. I think it's something that's important. I think it's important because people need to understand what's out there. And they need to realize that it starts with you. All right. And if you're the leader, let's say you're going on a hiking trip, right? And the leader is the one that is going to tell you things like what kind of boots to wear, what kind of socks that you should have, a couple pairs of socks. If it's cold, you're going to wear one pair, wear another pair, maybe wear a third pair. You have thermal socks that are going to go on first. Then you put your other socks on. Then maybe you have a third pair, but you're always going to have other socks that you can replace into, right? If it gets wet, you're going to make sure that you keep your socks in your backpack in airtight Ziploc bags. You're going to make sure you have snacks on the trail. You're going to make sure you have a walking stick. You're going to make sure you have a light. So a leader does all that. But then now that the leader has given you some direction, the leader has to show you how to use that tool. Think of a leader as the person that is going to advise you on the journey, but then also going to guide you on the journey. So they're not just going to tell you what you need to buy. They're going to tell you how to use it and when to use those tools. You know what I want to think of a leader is? If you ever had a caddy in golf, all right? A good golfer or mentor will always tell people what they need for golf. They'll help you understand what your swing is like, what kind of clubs you use. And a good caddy will tell you what club you need to hit, because they get to know what the club's distance are, the tolerances, and they also get to understand how you hit, so they can recommend based on that. So I think that is really pretty cool. The other issue is communication breaks down. It breaks down. And there's not too much that you can do when communication breaks down. Of course, you can say, hey, like what happened? But if this is something you have to keep doing and remind the leader, then that person's not a leader. That person is somebody in a leadership position, but they never led anything in their life. Now, I'm not saying that if you're not a leader, you can't lead, but you have to first learn how to lead on a small scale. And once you lead one or two people, then you can lead 5 people, 10 people, 20 people, 50 people, 100 people, 1,000 people. But you have to get confident in leading, and you also have to know how to motivate people, because a lot of people are going to want to drop out because they're going to feel frustrated. You've got to make sure that you can dig deep within yourself and also dig deep within that person in a respectable manner to get them to want to keep going. That's not an easy thing. All right. So communication breakdowns are very important. Maybe something is supposed to happen. I'll give you a perfect example. Maybe there's a leader at your company, and they're supposed to be going over all the stuff that's going on because your company's moving. Well, when you get to the new site, you find out that nothing's where it's supposed to have been, and it's because the leader that was running the organization's moving liaison between the moving company didn't properly give them what they needed. So you get the idea? So when communication breaks down, it's okay to ask and say, hey, what happened? I never got this. And oh, sure, I'll get it to you right away. And that's not a breakdown. That just might have been a blip. But if it keeps happening like 2-3 times, then it's time to maybe think about another leader for what you're going for. All right, lack of genuine interest. Genuine interest means that you are very well vested, not only in the situation yourself, but the other person. You want them to do well. Leaders want people to learn. Did you know that? Let me say that again. Leaders want you to learn. That's important. Anyone can learn to be a leader, but you can't become a leader overnight. Okay? So let me say this another way. In order to be a great leader, you have to first begin. If you don't begin, you'll never, ever learn how to be a leader. So you want to take some leadership courses. You want to mentor for some other people that have been leaders. And then once they've kind of shadowed you a little bit, you never take a position like a supervisory position or an executive position if you've never had the experience. And most boards will know this, but maybe there's things you're jumping into. It could be charity work, it could be volunteering, and you feel you're great to help doing this, but maybe you've never done this before. Maybe it's something simple as a food drive, and you don't know how to do the appropriate things like contact the appropriate supermarkets and get the appropriate permissions and make sure all the insurances are correctly done and make sure you have the volunteers coordinated and the schedules and make sure you know everything, right? If you don't do that, then you're going to be a mess. You're like, well, what do I do? I don't know. You're supposed to be doing that. So if you work with somebody who's been doing that for years, you're like, okay, now this is the things you need to do next year. Oh, well, how do you get the people? Well, you start calling them 3 months out and then you visit them in person, then you email them. So they mentor you. They explain to you how to be a leader. Leaders are not for lazy people. Let me just say this. So leaders are not lazy people. Leaders are not lazy people. All right. Sometimes you will hear the phrase, he's a lazy leader. She's a lazy leader. This can happen sometimes. What does that really mean? It means that the leader is avoiding challenges. They're staying too comfortable. We've talked about this before. They have a limited mental or emotional ability, and they don't want to build it. They have an untrained eye. They're not keen at finding out different discrepancies. They don't know how to communicate very well. In fact, a staggering number of leaders verge on being hyperactive and lazy simultaneously. So what does that mean? So that means you're compulsive to do something like checking your email every 5 seconds. But we all both know that checking our email every 5 seconds is not going to be good. It's actually going to be a waste of time. All right. Does that make a lot of sense? Okay. So I did want to let you know that. And lastly, there's a point I want to talk about, and that is the absence of accountability. Okay. The absence of accountability. Many people state that they're going to be accountable. Okay. And if somebody is preaching to you or is saying, oh, I'm going to do this, and they say it like 5, 6, 7 times, there's a good chance that they're trying to convince you and convince themselves because they may not have the discipline to have the accountability. Let me give you an example. In that moving situation, let's say you were the one that was running the ship or someone else was running that move. If they're not accountable, they're not going to make sure that everyone has their desk packed the day before the movers come and everything labeled, right? They're not going to make sure that they check in with the moving company to make sure that they're on time the day before. They check in the day of if they're late. They make sure they get them changes of locations. Like, you have a location going from, let's say you do color codes. And you usually do color codes is because people don't speak English, can't understand the numbers. So you can do a color code. You can't do letters, I should say. That can be changed. But usually a simple letter or number can work. Like you can do like a red A or a blue A and say that's moving to this. Sometimes they can understand numbers. Sometimes it just depends on the team you're getting. And you have to make sure they understand where it's coming from and where it's going to. And you want to keep out all of the intricacies that they don't need to know. Perhaps they need to know like when the elevators are operating. Maybe it's a union elevator schedule. Or maybe they need to know that when you get to the right side of the building, you have to go back out and in the other door because the first 250 offices are only accessible from the right side, and the left are basically 251 to 500. Does that make sense? I hope it does. So I hope you've enjoyed learning about, bad leaders, part 1 and part 2. And it's not to put leaders down. It's to allow leaders to pick themselves up and say, hey, I need to become better. I can't tell you how many times in my life I've done something and I want to get better at it. The fact that I recognize the fact that I want to get better is a good quality as a leader. No leader is 100% perfect. Let me say that. But a good leader is not going to make that same mistake again. Pretty cool, right? Ladies and gentlemen, do you know who I am by now? Sure you do. I'm John C. Morley. I'm a serial entrepreneur and I'm a podcast host and I'm a podcast coach. And I am a specialist in helping businesses tell a story that leads to them growing and, of course, being more scalable and profitable. Now, I typically do work with companies that bring in 10 million or more, and they know what their story is, or they don't, but they want somebody like me to find it, and they want it to be all about truth. They don't want something that's going to just make the news or that's going to get business, because they know that when you do something like that, people are going to smell right through it, and they're going to realize that you're not truthful. And integrity is key when you're building a business. All right, guys, have yourself a fantastic rest of your night. I'm going to catch you when? I'll catch you tomorrow, all right? Take care.